Jalak, thank you so much for joining us here at SuperReturn North America. It's great to have you here. And you were discussing on your panel lots of attention around AI and the expected impacts it will have on the way we live and work. But where are you actually seeing sort of the most adoption in terms of real life adoption, and where do you see that evolving as we move forward now today?
Well, it's obviously a really exciting time in AI right now. We have had a lot of attention being paid to these large language models like OpenAI, Anthropic, where we finally have enough data collected around the world that we can start building this more generalized platform where we can interact with AI. So that was very transformative. That happened a little over a year ago, where anybody can interact with AI, whereas before it was just large companies that had these data scientists that were working with their own proprietary models. So that's unlocked a lot of potential and imagination of how we can use all this data, how they can be, the data can be more specifically put into models. And what our thesis at Future Perfect Ventures has always been is that we're going to start to see vertical applications of AI. And so take an example of healthcare. We have radiologists now that look over our X-rays and MRIs, and a lot of that can now be done by AI models. And this becomes really important in emerging markets where you may not have as many radiologists, or even in the United States, we're seeing less people go into the medical profession these days. And so just automating, we wouldn't have been able to automate all of that if we didn't have the data. We now have the data, and then now we have the processing power to build these models, to analyze this data, and to do it in a time-efficient way and in a more real-time way. So it's really the combination of having the data and then the processing power and being able to apply these very specific models. This happens in financial services, marketing. And so we're seeing it across the board, and we're going to see more and more over time as these models become more refined.
Indeed, the adoption is transformative, as you're describing there. So within that, where is the greatest investor opportunity? What do you need to look out for? What do you need to be wary of? And where's the key opportunity?
So with all this excitement and all this potential, it also means that the technology is evolving at a very rapid pace. And so as an investor, we look at, while we believe in open source, we believe in having data available to more companies and more people, the companies we invest in still need to have something that's proprietary, that's unique. When we look at these vertical applications, such as the healthcare example, is the team from the industry, are they getting the right data in? Because these models are only going to work and work at scale if you have the right data, the right models that are going in to have the output that we want. And so we very much look at the integrity of the data, the expertise of the team, and then we also look at some of these larger companies, and could be Meta, could be Microsoft. I mean, they're innovating very rapidly also. So you want to not come across and replicate what they're doing. You may want to be acquired by them or build a new Microsoft. But we keep tabs with what the large companies are doing and what they're interested in. And we want to make sure that the companies we invest in are not going to necessarily compete directly, or if they do, have a real competitive advantage.
So from what you've just described there, due diligence to spot the opportunity, how does all of this impact on the question of valuations? Because that's been a key topic, particularly around AI. There's been so much interest. Where would you say we're at, and what do investors need to be a bit wary of?
Well, valuations are very high right now, especially with the brand names. I mentioned some of them with OpenAI and Anthropic. And look, if you look at the long-term potential, it's massive for all these companies. There's a lot of room. A lot of enterprises are still trying to figure out how they're going to use this data, how they build teams that can interact with this data. So in some ways, I believe there's a lot of upside. It's like when Google went public, people thought they were overvalued, but it looks like a speck compared to their current valuation. And so I wouldn't underestimate the potential of some of these companies. What we really want to look at is what is a long-term trajectory. And while valuations may be high, what is the market potential? And we're still in the early stages. We also are an early stage investor, so we will invest in the early days of like a legal AI startup or a financial services AI startup. Or ones that are building local language models, which are more regional and in the emerging markets. And so we often look at, not where the big money is going, where the valuations are really high, where there may be higher risk, but more upside potential. And we believe that exists across the board. And you do have to look at what the exit will potentially be, and right now the IPO markets are not very open. Acquisitions are starting to pick up a bit, especially within the AI space, as there's this race to get to scale. But we very much look at where could these companies potentially exit at, and that also limits what we look at these days.
What do you need in your team to be able to spot those potential businesses, and what do you require in terms of expertise around that?
Well, it's so interesting because as much as we're interested in AI and utilizing AI for our investment decisions or market research, and it's actually really good for market research, but there's no substitute actually interacting with the entrepreneurs, interacting with the technology. So there's a lot of face-to-face or Zoom to Zoom, but there's definitely over time you develop a gut of along with data, but also how open is this entrepreneur going to be to market changes? How resilient is that entrepreneur? How capable is that entrepreneur of building a team? And that requires interaction. As far as evaluating the technology, I mean, we have a bunch of entrepreneurs that we've invested in, that we work with. I've been investing in the space for 25 years now, and so there's a network that we also lean on when we're looking at potential investments. But at the end of the day, it is when you're investing at the early stage, a lot depends on the entrepreneur themselves.
You talked there about having a quarter of a century experience in this space.
Oh my gosh.
You've seen things evolve somewhat,
yes.
there.
Yeah.
And what do you expect to see in the next 10 years? From what you've described, it's almost impossible to imagine.
Really, it is. I have not seen such fast pace of development. And we also invest in crypto and blockchain. And I'd say AI and crypto are the two sectors that are just growing exponentially, where every day there's a new development from a technology standpoint, from a company, new company formation standpoint. And so in some ways we do require AI to gather that data, but we also require, you mentioned team members that can sift through data quickly and also be comfortable with a certain amount of uncertainty. Because when technology is evolving so quickly, you can't necessarily always predict where it's going to go. You can make educated guesses. But that's why we build portfolios. So I think we're all going to be interacting with AI without knowing it necessarily. We already have been. If you look at Netflix recommendations, Amazon recommendations, but it's going to be a lot more conversant, not just us typing in, but actually talking to AI agents, or them just knowing what we're looking for and having that push to us in a way that is useful, where we're not searching necessarily, but the information we need is coming straight to us.
Just finally, where are you most excited that this could go in terms of which sectors are you specifically looking at, and where do you see the greatest opportunities economically and for investors, but also for mankind, if you like? Where do you see the greatest opportunities lying?
It's so exciting to see what the potential is. I mentioned healthcare. If you even everywhere from drug discovery, pharmaceuticals have only found it cost efficient to invest in drug development that can impact a wide range of people. We haven't had as much targeted drug discovery as we can with this data, and also be able to kind of test through iterations without necessarily going and having human trials and using humans as guinea pigs. And so there's that side of it, and I mentioned the radiology. If you look at, I've spent a lot of time in emerging markets, investing in emerging markets, living in emerging markets. A lot of places that don't have access to X-rays and doctors. I mean, imagine we're also having devices that are being developed that can do the X-rays and then could be analyzed by an AI without having any human interaction. And when I look at what the internet did for so many sectors, including healthcare, including financial services, I mean, AI has 10x, 100x of the impact from an economic standpoint, but also just furthering everyone's health, everyone's financial well-being. Imagine if everyone could invest in targeted assets just for them, even if they only have $100 or $20 that they can invest. And that targeted personalization is going to be possible, and without requiring people to even be able to have to interact with it, which is what we're now doing with ChatGPT, but it's going to turn around and we'll have kind of human companions, human assistants, or human-like assistants that can help us on whatever journey we need.
Who knows what we'll be talking about when we next meet, and in a year's time even, let alone what we'll be talking about in 10 years' time. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, Jalak. It's been great to talk to you.
Well, thanks for having me.